What up? It's the Roundtable. I am your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. What's going on today, brother?
Hey man, this is definitely the first time we've started this episode. 100%. We did not have to restart. I'm good. It's freaking cold out here in Montana. I'll
Is
tell you
it?
that much. It's like I think I woke up every day so far this week. It's been at or below zero before
Wow.
the real feel of the wind chill and stuff. So that's been a blast. That's been super
Oh,
fun.
that's crazy. So what I'm hearing is that I should expect some cold temperatures coming my way then,
Yeah, about three
because it
weeks.
was, I want to say 55 today when it was middle of the day. Then it got really cold. Then it got cold, though.
It
Like,
was like 45 for a week straight. The sun was out,
yeah.
in Montana, people aren't going to get this, but when it gets muddy, that's how we know it's springtime. It was mud
Mm,
everywhere. I was like, oh man, I'm going to play golf early. And then today I put on gloves. So,
that's not great.
no, it's also not a good look for me personally, just wander around. But you got to do what you got to do. You got to put the gloves on, man.
Yeah, I mean, wearing gloves is better than not having fingers,
That's true. End
you
up like
know?
this.
Yeah, that one. Well, Tyson and listeners out there, we got a big show today. Big basketball show. It's basketball season, baby. And Tyson and I are ready for it. We did a little appetizer last episode, kind of get you caught up. Some major storylines have been happening if you hadn't been paying attention during the football season. But this time, we're going right into it as we are coming off the All-Star game and the All-Star break in the NBA. We're going to get you ready for the last home stretch right before the playoffs. So we got a lot to discuss. But first, Tyson, I just have a question for you. Did you watch any of the All-Star festivities?
I watched the skills challenge and then I watched part of the dunk contest. I was looking away. It got so bad that it was on. I could say that. I watched the 3-point contest. I really thought your boy Luke Kennard was going to come out and
Oh,
surprise
dude.
everybody and take the crown, but not quite. But yeah, I watched and then obviously the game. I mean, I like the All Star game. I love the new format. I know that people aren't particularly fans of it when it's 190 to 185. Not that high necessarily, but it's gotten pretty close to that in the past. But with the new format and the way that the fourth quarter set up, traditionally, at least in our lifetimes, Brad, we've gotten the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. They kind of buckle down, but this one demands them to play like real basketball for an entire quarter to win, which is better than the half quarter we were getting before.
Yeah, and I thought I like the Elam ending addition to this. So if you, for those of you who aren't aware, there's a target score you have to reach. Um, it's interesting in that setting in the All-Star game, and it made for a very compelling fourth quarter. I just thought the game was fun in general, though. I mean, Steph Curry going nuclear helped. I mean, burying those threes, but
That was crazy.
it was fun. I mean, it wasn't like the YMCA ball in the past. I know some people are like, this is ridiculous, not playing defense. Like, you can't go into a basketball all-star game expecting them to be D'ing up like it's game 7 of the NBA finals. Like, you have to know what it is, which is an exhibition and a fun game for the fans. And I thought it was fun. I didn't see, and I normally watch all the skill stuff, the skills comp, all-star, the 3-point and the dunk contest. I didn't this year, and I missed the Rising Stars game. And I love the Rising Stars all the way back to when it was freshmen versus sophomores, and obviously USA versus the world. I like
Imagine.
this. I like this format though. That was
I
sick. The
love
little
it.
mini tournament. It was competitive. You got to see more guys. The old legends were coaching these teams. Like, it was great.
And the added element of a couple G League guys, right? That
Yeah.
maybe we'll hear their names called come draft time eventually, and then you can point back and be like, oh, that was right. Because, I mean, a year ago, if we were doing this and they did this, and it was Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga are two of the guys, that get called. Then all of a sudden, come draft time, it's cooler. I don't know if that's going to be the way it plays out in the future there, but like it breathes new life into the Rising Stars because America versus the world was so much dumber than rookies. Like the sophomores normally beat the shit out of the rookies, so
Yeah.
they were like, okay, what if we did this? Failing to realize that it's almost all Americans
Right.
against like some like
Some
other guys, like
Canadians.
yeah, like somebody has to claim their heritage in the Bahamas just to fill out the game, which
Right.
is just it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, so I'm glad they adjusted. I thought this was a great format, and I think the NBA All-Star game, I think they should stick with that Elam ending because at least you end on a game-winning shot. It's sick, at the end. At least there's some sort of drama on there. So I liked it overall. I thought it was a fun weekend, and we're not even mentioning. I mean, during halftime, bringing out the NBA 75, the best 75 players ever. That was awesome. I mean, seeing the generations of the greatest players that ever played the game come out and share the same court was honestly gave me goosebumps. I was watching with a bunch of buddies, and we're all just like, "Oh my god, this is sick! Like this is crazy." And my friends who weren't even big basketball fans, not even sports fans, were watching, and they could kind of feel like, it was like a historic moment, an important moment, for us who are basketball fans. So that was kudos to the NBA on that. That was an awesome moment.
And it felt big, which I think was obviously the goal, but it's pretty hard to accomplish, especially in the NFL when they're like, and now it's the 1985 Bears, and it's just a guy stepping forward and waving. This felt like it was a moment where it was a cool deal, and I think part of that, not to be too morbid, but when in 25 years when the top 100 list comes out, I mean, we're not going to be seeing a lot of these older guys. They're not going to be there at that time. So this was like, oh, there's LeBron, and then also we're going to be like, oh, Giannis was 28 when this one came out, and now he's 4 or 5 or whatever he ends up being. And I think that was my favorite part of the whole thing, was how happy Giannis was to even be included. He looked like a puppy dog. He was just smiling at everybody. So that was pretty cool. And my bold prediction for the next one is there's going to be a lot more European players than the couple
I'm sure
that were on the list.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be quite a few more, and especially with the way the league's shaping up right now. So that was an awesome moment from All-Star game. But Tyson, it's pretty much going to be fast and furious down the stretch here. I want to say 24 more games remaining in the NBA regular
give or
season.
take, I think.
Yeah, so obviously with some COVID stoppages and things like that, there's teams who have to make up some ground, but roughly about 24 to 28 maybe games remaining in this regular season. So this is going to be a sprint down to the finish. So what we're going to do here, we're going to get you updated with the current Eastern Conference standings. We'll start here. So right now, Miami and Chicago both tied for the number 1 seed at 38 and 21. Philly right now, Philly and Cleveland, 2.5 games back. They're 3 and 4. Milwaukee is 36 and 24. They occupy the 5th spot. They have more losses in that column than Boston is the 6th seed right now at 34 and 26. Now, as we outlined on the last podcast, the NBA has gone into a play-in tournament. So the teams 7, 8, 9, and 10 playing a play-in game. So in that little range right here, Toronto at 32 and 25, who's gotten really hot right before the All-Star break. They're a half game back from Boston to not even play in this play-in tournament. Brooklyn Nets, 31 and 28. They're the 8th seed. The Charlotte Hornets, they're 29 and 31. And then you have the Atlanta Hawks from the Eastern Conference Finals last year at 28 and 30. And then a game back from them and the 11th seed right now are the Washington Wizards. So that's where we're at right now in the current Eastern Conference standings. We're going to get to the play-in situation because I think it's fascinating in the East. But right now, let's talk about who the favorite is in the East, Tyson, because this is pretty top-heavy, right? I mean, Miami's back. Chicago, I mean, they're overachieving for, I think, what a lot of people expected. Philly, I think you thought they're going to be there. Cleveland, obviously overachieving. And Milwaukee, they're the 5th seed. They were the repeat champions. This is a pretty top-heavy conference. Who's the favorite in your eyes right now, and who would you bank your money on?
Well, we just talked about him, and, for a long time, the East went through wherever LeBron James was playing. And I think the East is going to go through last year, this year, and probably until he's out of there too, is Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks. This dude, like, when the Bucks show up and they play for real, they murder people. It's not like casual kind of hanging around and beating people. They'll show up, beat you by 30, and then they just go kind of, they'll go 4 and 2 over their next couple games, just kind of lollygagging in and out. But when they show up locked in, this team can roll anybody. But one important caveat there is I have to see how James Harden looks playing with Joel Embiid, because Giannis is the reigning Finals MVP. He's all the accolades in the world. He's an incredible player. The Bucks had an awesome season, and they just basically ran it back with the same roster. But none of that matters, I don't think, if Joel Embiid and James Harden can really feed off each other and play well. Drew Holiday is an amazing on-ball defender. I think, one of the 3 best in the NBA. Off the top of my head, at guarding guards specifically. James Harden doesn't like to be bothered. I don't think it's going to matter that much if they figure out this pick and roll over there in Philadelphia or pick and pop. I think it's going to be the reason I'm so intrigued about Philadelphia, and we'll get into this discussion, I'm sure, is this is going to be a new age throwback to the old NBA, like a new style of how to run the pick and roll. This isn't the Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire go dunking on him every time. I think there's going to be a lot of nuance to the way these two run that thing, and it's all predicated on how Doc Rivers wants to let them play. But right now I'm saying Bucks, but I'm super scared of Philly if I'm anybody else in the East.
I think that's a good way to look at it, right? I mean, Bucks, they're the champs until somebody takes it away from them. I mean, we've heard it from all the legends who talk about it. Listen, when you're the champion, you have that trophy. It's up to somebody to come take that out of your hands, and you have to do it. So right now, I mean, I understand why you're saying the Bucks, right? They have the reigning champion in the world, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Many would classify as the most dominant player in the NBA right now. Just when he gets it going, we saw what he did against the Suns in the finals. I mean, he took the game over. He took the series over. And we're like, okay, that's the Giannis that we've been expecting to see. And me personally, I've been a little critical of Giannis before that playoff run. And he showed his entire bag, everything that he has that he can do. So when you have a player of that dominance, I understand, Bucks should be a favorite in a lot of people's eyes. For me, Tyson, I'm saying the Nets are the favorite here. And a lot of it. I live in Brooklyn.
Yeah, okay. So that local radio is getting to you, brother.
It may be. It may be. I think they're a little more pessimistic on the Nets than I am, because here's why. All the accolades I just threw at Giannis, Durant's done that. Durant's been that. Durant knows he's been that, and everybody else knows Durant is that. He can kill you from any spot. You pick a spot on the floor, tell him to score from there, he'll do it against NBA defenders. Kyrie Irving, now, not to get into this too much, it looks like the vaccine mandate that's preventing him from playing in New York is going to be rolled back, and he's going to be eligible for all home games now. That is huge for the Nets. Adds more offense. Now, Ben Simmons, we got to see where his headspace is. I mean, obviously sitting at the 8th seed right now, you're on the outside looking in for where the Nets want to be. But I will say this. If Ben Simmons is at least 70% of what he was, that gives you defense, what's something they desperately needed, and it gives them size, something they desperately needed. Kyrie Irving being able to be a full-time player again, that allows their offense to start gelling and meshing a little bit. Then you bring in back Kevin Durant, who before his injury was the best player in the world. That is a lethal team. My caveat is, of course, we have to see how this all unfolds, right? Durant has to be healthy. Ben Simmons has to have grown up. And this vaccine thing has to actually be rolled back in order for Kyrie to actually play minutes and meaningful minutes when this team needs him. So that's what I think. It's a lot. It's a lot of things here. But if everything works out right, I think the favorite in the East should be the Brooklyn Nets. I think they're the most scary team in the East.
Why aren't we, and I think this is an important discussion because I don't think they're getting a lot of shine nationally. The Miami Heat are really good.
Yeah, they are.
This is better than the team that went to the finals in the bubble, I think. They don't have – I think Goran Dragic was a huge underrated piece of that, but Miami is, very, very well coached, very balanced, and they're just dogs. They're just going to play as hard as they can. They're going to bother your best player on both ends of the court. You have to play 48 minutes when you play Miami, and you got to strap up because the conditioning down there, we know the Heat will run people out of the building, and they've done it in the past. Why do you think it is that Jimmy Butler still gets treated like this borderline all-star guy, kind of, when we know he's – but if you ran through guys in the NBA and you were like, would you take him or Jimmy Butler? You don't get as far as you think you will before you start going, that's close. As soon as you get somewhere where you would have thought, like this year, DeMar DeRozan, everybody loves DeMar DeRozan. I don't know if I'd rather have DeMar DeRozan for this specific season or Jimmy Butler, and that's an all-star starter, right? Or that's an all-star right there. Bam Adebayo, I think because the Heat weren't great last year and he's been banged up, the shine kind of wore off of the new fancy toy as the new versatile big man in the NBA, right. Shoot, dribble, defend. He's still doing all those things. Duncan Robinson got a bag, and now we pretend like, he's not vital to their success. Tyler Hero was saying, why can't I be Devin Booker? And no, he's not been Devin Booker, but he's been damn good. He's been better than Tyler Hero has ever been in the NBA. I think this team is casually just going to roll through the first couple rounds of the playoffs, and then we're going to be, oh, yeah, of course they're in the Eastern Conference Finals.
The Jimmy Butler question, I think it's this. I don't know, because I think you really have to – when you're a fan of a team like we are with the Suns and the Sixers, obviously, like, we put our players on a pedestal. We know what their strengths and weaknesses are more than the average fan or somebody who doesn't follow it on a day-to-day like we do or as fans do of their teams. So the casual NBA fan, Jimmy Butler, I think they look at him as a really good defender and a good playmaker. I don't think Jimmy Butler's game allows the casual fan to appreciate how good he is. He's boring. He does the little things right. He's not flashy. He doesn't hit threes. I will say the other thing about Jimmy Butler that I think for actual fans who know that, why he's not elevated, is he misses a lot of games for like weird reasons. Like, okay, here's a little tweaked hamstring. He's out 2 games here. It's like, oh, that's a miss there. And he comes back. Okay, he's going to facilitate this game. All right. Well, we kind of needed him to score a little bit more. Or, we expected him to, kind of average 20 or get this and that. Well, he defers this game. Or then one game he's really aggressive. And one game he's rebounding a lot. And it should show the versatility of his skill set. But I think it's just the fact that it feels inconsistent because it feels like he's a sporadic type of player when you kind of look at everything overall. I think that's why he doesn't get the love as much as these other players who do that, do fill up the box sheet and have talents that are versatile. That's my guess about it. I don't know for sure, but that's what I think. I love Jimmy Butler as a player. I think he's really, really good. I don't think he's a star or a superstar. I think he's a star, and I think he's the best player on that Heat team. And they've really adapted his mentality. I mean, he's missed games. Bam's missed games. Tyson, they're sitting the number 1 seed in the East with those injuries that have kind of permeated throughout the Heat off and on, and they're still 17 games above 500 and a really good team. I agree with you. I think this is a really good basketball team, really deep. I mean, Max Strus coming off the bench, really good. Caleb Martin, really good. They have role players that know their roles, want to execute their roles, and they go out there under Coach Spo and they execute. And that's why they're so solid. And they also have championship pedigree with Kyle Lowry there as well.
That's disrespectful that it took us 4 minutes to talk about the Heat to bring up Kyle Lowry, I think.
Now, I have a question for you before we get into the play-in situation that I think we will have some thoughts on. But here's some teams that have overachieved. And the Bulls right now, I mean, DeMar DeRozan, I mean, anytime you break a Wilt Chamberlain record, we take a bow and get showered with flowers because
you think
you're not eligible a lot of times with those?
At this point, like, what was DeMar's, like, the most 30-point games in a row while shooting over 50% from the field?
I think it was most 35-point games in a row.
Whatever it was, I just think at a certain point, I think that when they don't have a stat, they're just like, oh, that was Wilt. And then they're like, oh, you broke it. But nobody's going to fucking check. The dude has every other record, out there. Then, like, when I read that, I was like, oh, yeah, that checks out. Didn't look it up at all. So I think you're
like, oh, it's a Wilt record. Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes, you got to be a little bit more skeptical of these things.
Maybe. I don't know. It's Wilt, though. You believe anything. It's like Paul Bunyan, But Bulls are sitting at 38-21, tied for first. Cavs, I mean, Jesus, 35-23, tied for fourth. Where do they finish? Because clearly have overachieved for the expectations. Bulls, I definitely think have a higher overall ceiling just due to their talent level on that team. I guess let's start with the Bulls here. I mean, where do you realistically see them finishing in the Eastern Conference in the regular season, and how deep can you potentially see them going in the playoffs?
Well, I think, they have a decent shot at winning the East in the regular season, just being the 1 seed. I don't really think they're going to fall out of that top 3 kind of upper echelon there. I know everybody's jumbled together and close, but there's like this, just watching the games, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's like this energy about this Bulls team that just doesn't – they're ready to play every time they show up, which I think, when I was talking about Milwaukee, there's some games where they go into the game. It almost feels like they were like, okay, it's whatever. We're playing on the second night of a back-to-back and we're out here in Oklahoma. We can phone this one in. That doesn't really happen with Chicago. As far as in the playoffs, I don't think this team can win the East. Okay. I think this team would be hard-pressed to beat if the standings were to hold, would be hard-pressed to beat like Brooklyn in the first round, for instance. Or really, I think that them versus the Celtics would be a good matchup. I think there's too many been there, done that teams for them right now in the East. And I know you can point to Phoenix last year or other teams that kind of rise up. Currently, the way things are set up, teams are healthy. Teams with pedigree are the ones that they're going to have to be playing. Whereas in those other years, guys get banged up or, somebody's not as good as we thought they were going to be or whatever. This year, I think that they have a realistic shot, I think, of being the 1 seed going into the playoffs here down the stretch. But I'm more likely to believe this team loses in the first round than they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I definitely agree with that last statement. I mean, let's just look at the matchups. The Bulls don't defend well. And yes, they're missing Caruso. And yes, they've been missing Lonzo Ball for an extended period of time. But by the time those guys get back, I mean, they're going to have to play back in the basketball shape. I mean, how 100% are they really going to be by the time the playoffs are around? I mean, you're going to add Patrick Williams back. That's going to be big. But again, how effective is he going to be with limited chemistry with the current players, with limited reps? Just how does this look overall? Bulls play hard. I think they can really be like, the Hawks teams of Horford, Josh Smith, and the old Hawks team who always win the East and kind of crumble in the playoffs. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be because the Bulls aren't good enough and they crumble. More so that just a matchup, there's just too many teams that can take advantage of their weaknesses, like Adebayo pulling Vucevic out, and that creates a softness on the interior. And the quick guards can go by the Bulls guards. Or, Milwaukee's just way bigger than
the Bucks
Chicago.
Kill them.
I mean, depending on how the Sixers look, I mean, what can they do matchup wise? I mean, you got James Harden. Can he get DeRozan in foul trouble or Levine in foul trouble? Like, take away one of those guys. How does that offense look? So I agree. I think they're going to be a strong finisher in the regular season, probably top 3 seed, just depending on if Milwaukee wants to play hard, depending how good the Nets are. So definitely will be a top 3 finisher, I believe, in the East. But realistically, I don't think they make the Eastern Conference Finals. I agree with you. I'm more pressed to think that they are a first round exit than going any deeper than that.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of stinks, right? But if you're a Bulls fan, you just get out of Gar Pax, and this is like the first, your new regime has an off season, and this is what you're, given. I think you got to be ecstatic because
for sure,
we're not 6 years removed now from them just like giving Dwayne Wade a contract just so people showed up to the games.
Yeah,
so I think this is a huge win for the Cavaliers. This one's a bit trickier because right now they're sitting at 4th. Really tied for 3rd with Philly. I think Philly has a tiebreaker over them or something.
Yeah.
But this team was going to get passed up by Milwaukee. I'm pretty confident in that. So that bumps them down to 5th right there. I think this team's probably going to get passed up by Boston. Boston has been on an absolute heater here going into the break. I think 9-1 in their last 10.
Yep.
Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, to kind of sticking it to everybody, including me, who said that I think the experiment is over. They're playing well. They're weird that in year 4 or whatever of their relationship, they're still working out kinks, but
I know
it's working. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Brooklyn, went on a pretty good tear here to end the year, doesn't end up in the playing game. I think Cleveland, they're sitting at 3 right now. I think there's a chance they play in the playing game to end the season. I mean, this team is really talented, but they're not experienced at all. And they're not, this is the old saying in the NFL, when you get to the end zone, act like you've been there. This is a bunch of dudes that have never been there, and then Kevin Love. And then so he's supposed to, he's like running a daycare at this point. These guys are 19, 20, 21 years old, and he's trying to get them locked in every day and all this stuff. And yeah, it's working right now, but I think that, again, when the intensity picks up and there's going to be a what the hell moment in Cleveland, and I think what this team has accomplished to this point is awesome. I think, again, if you're a Cavs fan, you're absolutely ecstatic with the way Evan Mobley has turned out, but
Mhm.
and Darius Garland growing into himself, not having to worry about the Colin Sexton thing going forward. I think that's kind of worked itself out there as well. Um, I just they're going to get passed up by the veteran teams, the teams that have been here, the teams that win, and the teams, honestly, with guys who are established top 10, 15 players in the league. Cleveland doesn't have any of those. They don't even really have like a top 30 guy in the NBA, right? I know Jared Allen made the All-Star team, but that was just kind of because somebody had to. It felt like more than anything else. So, um, kudos to Cleveland for the first half they put together, but I think they're in danger here.
Yeah, realistically, when you look at it, for everything you said, we know Brooklyn's going to improve. We know Milwaukee, they're going to try to figure this thing out as they get down the stretch. They're going to probably push to win their division. That's just the type of the pedigree they have.
Yep.
They're probably going to push for a top 2 seed, if anything. I mean, they know that if they were playing in Brooklyn in that playoff series last year, I think maybe it would have been a different story. So, they want home court advantage. They know it's important. I think they'll probably try to push for it. And the other thing that Cleveland had in the first part of the regular season, teams didn't really take them seriously a lot of times. And now they're like, this team's actually good. And we got to play hard and we got to rebound, because that's the thing. They get so many points from offensive rebounds and putbacks because, all right, we're playing Cleveland, we don't need the effort as much. Now it's like, we got to box these guys out or they're going to fucking embarrass us, because they've done that plenty of times. But now it's starting to get serious. I'm curious to see, though, is Boston just a nice heater in the regular season? Toronto, a nice heater in the regular season, and Cleveland is actually like one of those teams where, like, okay, they're establishing themselves, and they stay out of that play-in spot. I think that's a possibility. So, I mean, to agree with you a little bit, they're definitely going to drop out of the top 4. I think both of us agree they're going to be out of the top 4 seed. It's just how far do they fall? You think they have a chance to be in the danger zone and make it in the playoff spot, the play-in tournament? I think there's a good chance that they'll stay out of that, maybe 6, and just hover around that line and try to hold off Toronto or Boston or Brooklyn, or if that's even possible. So, like you said, a fantastic start to the season for them. Tyson, let's go to that play-in tournament then, because there's some interesting names, interesting teams in here now. And we kind of touched on it a bit with Brooklyn. I mean, we don't expect them to stay down there, but Toronto, who's gotten hot, Scotty Barnes has been a great addition for them. I mean,
our boy.
Our boy. Talk about a whiff on our end. Fred Van Vliet's been awesome, man. I mean, facilitator, combo guard, can do it all, shooting, gets to the rack. Pascal Siakam, okay, he's taken that step again that we thought he was going to take. OG Anunoby playing really well.
Is he shooting 40% from 3 right now or something like that? He's a
sniper. And then Gary Trent, speaking of, man, I mean, holy smokes, talk about a heater. I mean, this team's playing well, and Nick Nurse is coaching him in a way we're like, oh, did we crown Nick Nurse a little too early for being a great coach? Then he does this. You're like, oh, no, he's really good. They're sneaky good. They're in that spot. Charlotte's fallen off, kind of fallen back into what we expected preseason. Atlanta sitting at 28-30. They gotta go at some point here. And then Washington sneaking around that one game back. Who are some teams that you expect to be in this?
I don't expect the Wizards to be here at the end of the year.
Okay, we're eliminating the Wizards.
We could start there. No Brad Beal. Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to spend that much time on them. It was a fun story to start the year that they were, they started out on fire and then kind of fell back to earth, but like they're still worse than the record indicates. Like there's still, who's their best player without Brad Beal?
Well, Dinwiddie's gone. Is it Kuzma?
Is it? That's what I was going to say.
Porzingis?
It's one of those two, and that's not ideal. And back in the day, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that's good enough to get you the 7th seed in the East. Not anymore, because I think one thing about these play-ins in the East that we're going to be treated to, no matter what, is it's going to be explosive offense, and there will be star guards in the game. Which, the NBA is a guard league now, and traditionally, if you have a high-end guard, you're going to be out of that top you're going to be in the top 6, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But now everybody in the East feels like they've got. If you don't have a star guard, you have a Joel Embiid carrying you, or you're just a good unit like Cleveland. But LaMelo Ball versus Kyrie Irving would be amazing to watch as a little appetizer for the playoffs. I think the Hawks are still worse than people are
I do
talking
too.
about. I think that's why it's a little bit disappointing that Brad Beal is shut down for the year, because at that point I'd be willing to have that conversation. Can Washington catch them? I think the Hawks suck right now. It's plain and simple. I think there was lightning in a bottle last year. They got really lucky that NBA All-Star turned into a mental midget and just shrunk in front of everybody's eyes. And look, they beat the Knicks, and then Ben Simmons didn't dunk the ball, and then we were like, oh, they're up next. It was just them playing really well for an extended period of time, and now they're back to being the Atlanta Hawks. I don't think they make any noise this season.
Yeah, I think they'll make the tournament. I don't like you said. I mean, they're here right now. And it's nice that they're leading the Wizards by a game and the Knicks by 4 because the Knicks stink and the Wizards are going to be bad. Charlotte's the intriguing one to me. Like, how good can that team get on short notice? Because they started out really hot, and you're like, okay, I can see how this team can make some noises and make some
1-9 in their last 10.
1-9, like, how is that possible? It's not like they have bad players. I mean, and it looked like the pieces fit early on. Now it's like this team doesn't fit at all. I'm surprised they didn't do more at the trade deadline, to be completely honest. But maybe they just want to see how if it meshes. If it was just a little fatigue. I don't know what at that point. Toronto's the one that's interesting to me. If they can hold on to that 7 spot, let's say Brooklyn gets out of there. I think we both expect them to. Who comes back to that 7 spot? Who comes back to the 8 spot? Toronto stays at 7 if they're not able to push up. They're clearly, in my opinion, the favorite to make the actual tournament by holding that 7 spot. I think they have to get the 8th seed or lower. I think they may be in trouble here. But out of these 4 teams, I mean, obviously don't want to harp on it too much. Again, we don't expect Brooklyn to be here. It's just about who's going to come back down. And as we said, it's either going to be between Cleveland or Boston. So out of those group there, Toronto or Boston or Cleveland, I think it's going to be there's the odd man out. I'll put my money on Toronto being the worst out of those 3 because I don't see the Knicks or the Hawks or the Hornets being better than those 3 teams.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on that. When the NBA introduced this play-in idea, I thought it was going to be stupid. And then I
think a lot of people were skeptical.
We got LeBron, Steph last year, right? And then we got Ja Morant, Steph. And that was really fun. And then this year it's shaping up to be, instead of just like underperforming star player teams, it's like pretty good teams are going to be in here, which I think we're getting really lucky. I don't want to overlook that because a lot of time, like if we go to the West, and we'll talk about it, but it's not always, you don't get lucky this way because in the West, Portland right now is looking at playing in the plan, and who cares?
Well, you want to see your boy Anthony Simons?
That is my boy. I've been on that train since
he's good, man.
I saw his hoop mixtape when he was 15 or 16, and then I just told everybody he was going to be good. It's one of those plant your flag moments.
Oh, yeah.
If I was wrong, people would have totally forgot about it. But now that I'm right, I bring it up.
Hey, you got to do it.
I don't ever talk about how much I loved Emmanuel Mudiay.
Who?
Or Timmy Ojale.
Yeah.
That stuff never happened.
All right, well, let's talk about the West right now then, since we're on it. So I'll run through this, and we got some interesting topics I think to discuss with where we're at in the top 3 here. So one right now, best team in the league by far, Phoenix at 48-10. I mean, they're 6.5 games in front of Golden State, who's the 2nd seed at 42-17. Memphis a game and a half back behind Golden State at 41-19 in the 3 spot. Then you get some separation. Utah at the 4 spot, 36-22, followed by Dallas a game and a half back. And then there's Denver in the 6th seed, clear of the play-in tournament at 33-25, a game and a half behind Dallas. Now, in that play-in situation, as we look at it now, you have Minnesota in the 7th seed, the LA Clippers in the 8th seed, the LA Lakers in the 9th seed at 27-31, and then followed by the Blazers, as you mentioned, 25-34 at the 10 seed. So that's how you're looking now. Then some teams knocking on the door, hypothetically. Spurs 23-36, 2 games back. New Orleans 23-36, 2 games behind the Blazers. And then Sacramento 22-38. They are about 3.5 games back behind the Blazers. So interesting scenario there, which we'll get to. Can anybody sneak in there? You know, who can get hot? I think that's a possibility in the West. We didn't see it in the East. There's a chance in the West. But look, we got to talk. We got to go here, Tyson. We got to talk about the big three. The 3 leading seeds in the West are the 3 best teams in the entire NBA, record-wise. I mean, Suns have put together a masterful performance so far this season. I mean, everything you want. Blowouts, close game wins, clutch performances, amazing defense, incredible offense. They've had it all this season. Chris Paul gets hurt. He's probably going to miss the rest of the regular season. How does that impact for you? Where do you think this team finishes? Are they still going to be finishing with the number 1 seed?
You bet. This team is, I think people still, for some reason, aren't giving the roster construction here the credit that it deserves, because this is a team last year that, if you remember watching the playoffs, Chris Paul couldn't hardly dribble for a couple games with his left hand, and then he couldn't shoot for an extended period of time in the playoffs. And all they did was, sweep the Nuggets, get past the Clippers, play in the finals. This team is super deep, and 6 games is, with 24 left or whatever it is to play. Devin Booker is quietly a really good distributor for that 2 guard. And I know I sound like a homer, but he's the best 2 guard in the NBA. And I really believe that. I think he's better at this point in his career than James Harden, and we can even talk about if Harden's a shooting guard anymore. Anyways, Kyrie's kind of more the 2 over there, or was over there anyway.
Yeah.
But Phoenix is super deep. They have been banged up all year long, whether it was Booker missing an extended period of time, then Ayton, Bridges missing games, Cam Johnson's hurt, Chris Paul is now hurt, and all they're doing is sitting here at 48-10. They ripped off 7 in a row. They have the easiest schedule remaining in the NBA. They have probably the best continuity over the last 2 or 3 years. So this isn't like Chris Paul is going to come back and is he going to know how to play with these guys? Because of course he's going to know, because this is, to me, more of a precautionary thing than anything else with the injury, because if it was really that bad, Chris Paul wouldn't have played in the All-Star game. He played in he knew he was wearing a cast over the break. He knew he was going to miss time. And by the way, Monty Williams was coaching in the All-Star game. If it was really this big of a deal, Monty Williams would have went over to the other locker room and said, "Chris, you're not playing." That would have been the end of that. So I think this team holds on to it. And I guess if we want to go bold prediction with it, I think the 6-game leads either stands or grows.
Wow. How about that? And to your point, it's not like, I love Chris Paul. You love Chris Paul. It's not like they lost Devin Booker, who's their leading scorer and the best player. So they still have Booker. They still have Ayton. They still have all those pieces who helped them last year. They'll be fine. They're deep enough. They'll be good. And they got Torrey Craig again. That's another addition. They got Aaron Holiday in the at the trade deadline. So that's another guard that they can bring off the bench. I agree with you. I think they'll be fine. I'm curious to see how they look without him, because that could be a little snapshot. Hey, how does this team look? And something that other teams can kind of put in their memory bank. Okay, if Chris Paul is off the floor, here's potentially how we can tack him or defend him. That's some food for thought down the stretch. For me, with the big three in the West, my question is, do the Grizz come back to earth here? Because they've had a fantastic season so far. And even when John Morant, everybody's like, John Morant, man, he's so good. This team's so good because of Morant. With Morant missing games, this team's been awesome. They just win. They dog you, play defense, shoot the ball extremely well, are efficient. That's what a lot of the big reason why they're 41-19. And I think a lot of people, when they're looking at it, they're like, can they clip Golden State? Can they get to their heels? They're only a game and a half back. My question more of it is, Utah's going to get healthy. They're going to bring Gobert back. That increases their defense exponentially. Does Memphis actually come back a little bit, back to earth? Like, Could we see them out of the top 3 seed and potentially back down to the 4, 5, 6 range, which is a possibility if the Nuggets get back Murray? Can Dallas, with these additions, how good do they look offensively? Memphis, they've never really been in this spot before where I think a lot of times they're going to be the favorites in a lot of these games in this market. Utah's been there before. They know how to win regular season games. Same with Denver. Can the Grizz sustain the success they built in the early season and maintain that, or are they going to come back to earth? That's what I'm looking for out of this big 3 spot.
That's fascinating. I think that's the only place I've heard that take. I haven't heard any Grizzly slander in like a month. I'm serious. I mean, it's just been giving these guys their roses, and how awesome it is that Ja Morant was able to turn this around. I think part of that is probably because Zion's not playing, because then that would be the discussion. Oh, which one of these guys is bet? But that's something. Honestly, I hadn't even really thought of them falling back down. But I think part of the reason I still, I guess, don't really feel like they're going to get passed by Utah is I think the Utah thing's kind of over. I think that this is the flag planting episode. I think this is the last season we're going to get of a full season, at least, of a Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert pairing. And I think that things are worse in that locker room than we're being led to believe. We get little snippets here and there of them not getting along, but the Ingles trade was super head scratching to me, especially when, like, if you think the team you had as currently constructed is good enough to win the title, then you keep him. And if you don't think you're good enough to win the title, that's not the trade that pushes you over Phoenix and Golden State and Memphis. So I think that, to me, is kind of the more fascinating part. Rather than are the Grizzlies coming back, is Utah going to break up? But as far as the Grizzlies go, I don't think so. I think Ja Morant's a winner. And I just think sometimes guys have these seasons where it's like, you can see it building, and then it's just like when you watch this dude at Murray State for a couple, and then playing in the NCAA tournament where he kindly got people's eyes on him. Since then, it's been full speed ahead, all systems go. And I don't see him stopping for anybody. And you're going to have to make the Grizzlies bow out of this thing.
Now, we can't talk about the big 3 without mentioning Steph Curry and the Warriors. I feel like I predicted a little bit on this podcast. When everybody expected, when Klay Thompson comes back, I mean, they're just adding another guy. It's like, hold on a second. This isn't 2K. You need to adjust rotations because now Jordan Poole doesn't play as much. How does that affect his shooting, which we've seen substantially impacts it negatively? He's great in spots. He wasn't the same volume guy as before. How does he adjust to that? Also, then defensive rotations. Wiggins, who does he guard? Who does Klay guard? Who does Curry guard now? It impacts things. This is real life basketball. This isn't paper basketball. This isn't 2K. Like, you have to think about these things and they have to execute them. So I think it was a little rocky to start, especially working Klay back in. Now, the good news is he didn't get injured. The better news is he's starting to heat up a little bit, kind of quietly down the stretch. His shot looks better. Like before, I was like, man, that does not look like his form like it's had in the past. It looked a lot more like a set push shot. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like Klay Thompson of old, where it's a little more flowing. He can get a little bit more extension on it, which I think is a really good sign. Draymond's the key here. They need him back if they want to make a push and if they want to be true contenders. As good as Curry is, as good as Klay are, as good as Wiggins in the group is, I think they may be a little vulnerable in the playoffs if they don't get Draymond back, especially in a 7-game series against someone like Denver. And I hate to say it, man. I mean, even against someone like Utah, I mean, that size is a big issue for the Warriors. What are your thoughts on the Warriors as we stand now? I mean, is it all sweet? Is it all roses? I mean, are we just going to be like, oh, here come the Warriors again? Are they getting hot at the right time? Or what's your thought process going on in that locker room right now?
Well, I think in the locker room, they feel great. I think they feel like they're the best team in the league and they're going to go out and win another title. Personally, I think, just on your last point there about Draymond, I think they can still play Gobert off the court in a playoff series.
Even
But
with Kayvon Looney on?
it's just I don't know what they're gonna do. But I think that I got a boy uh, from the Ignite, my man Jonathan
Yeah,
Kuminga. He's
yeah,
gonna have to if he can play a big role because look, all he has to do is be better than Kayvon Looney. He doesn't have to be Draymond Green, and then that's the ticket there. I don't think they'll be. First of all, you can't play Jokic off the floor because Jokic just makes you play basketball at the pace that he wants to play basketball.
right.
So it doesn't. Good luck. It doesn't matter. I don't think they can play Ayton off the floor. I think we saw that last year in the playoffs. Nobody could. I don't think the Warriors are different in that respect. But to me, the biggest question mark on Golden State is definitely how is Clay going to handle guarding in the playoffs? Because right now he's come back and he's not the Klay Thompson that left, the Mr. All Defense. He was an amazing on-ball and off-ball defender before. Now he's a little slower, right? But that rust or is that just who he is now? And then when the intensity picks up and he's looking, if I'm Golden State and Clay has to guard Devin Booker for 6-7 games, a while ago I liked my chances. But that was like 2 Achilles ago or Achilles and an ACL or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm not so sure. Now, that goes from my biggest hidden strength to potentially my biggest hidden weakness because I think Clay's still going to think he's a good defender. I think they'll be real hesitant, to not play Klay Thompson in the fourth quarter of these games. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's like, oh, I keep using Booker, but it could be anybody. It could be Donovan Mitchell at 16 here in the fourth quarter to close this out. And then you're like, shit, where did we go wrong when it was in front of you the whole time? So I think that's going to be a huge issue because, like, if this was, like you said, if it was just Klay Thompson walking back in here, then they could be the 8th seed right now, and I'd probably still pick them to win the West. They've been awesome. I think they've been better than I expected to this point in the year, and now, we'll see how they close. But just how Klay guards in the playoffs is going to be absolutely massive because, again, like I said, they're going to be playing a lot of star-heavy lineups, guards in the West. And if Steph has to guard him, you're in worse shape. So it's a catch-22 thing there, Golden State.
That's a big three. They've been awesome, the big three. So we definitely want to get some highlights there. But you got to talk about this stuff if you get into the playoffs. I mean, that's when shit gets real. I mean, shit gets real. And here's another thing. Is it a possibility in your mind that one of those three teams don't win the West between Phoenix, Golden State, and maybe I'll throw Memphis? I mean, I think they could probably potentially fall out of there. But let's say Phoenix and Golden State, because for me, those are two of the two most prohibitive favorites in the conference right now. Like, I'm not even thinking about them getting upset before they have to play each other. But have you thought about that? Is that it crossed your mind?
Not really. It's just I think Phoenix matches up so well with seeds 3 through 8 in the Western Conferences. I think they'll be able to dispatch anybody they run across not named Golden State in the playoffs. I think Golden State presents real matchup problems for Phoenix in a way that other teams don't, mainly because other teams don't have Stephen Curry and other teams can't play the same style of basketball. But I think the only team, and it sounds stupid, that I could, like, at the end of the year, if they were to win the West, I would still be surprised, but I wouldn't be completely shocked, would be if Paul George comes back and, the Clippers start rocking again. And because this team, like I said last time, I think they're 30-31 right now, something like that. Missing their two best players. And they just got – I don't think they just got better. I think they got significantly better at the trade deadline. I still would take healthy Phoenix, healthy Golden State over them, but I don't think, first of all, if Memphis plays Golden State in a playoff series, there's some you think Steph Curry and Draymond Green and those guys haven't been thinking about losing the play-in to the kids from Memphis for a whole year? I think that there's some stuff to get out. But if I'm Phoenix and, Golden State, I'm not worried about the Nuggets or the Jets because it's been there, done that with all of these teams.
Now, Tyson, sometimes we got to ask ourselves, what the hell happened? I mean, seriously, some of these teams, we're talking about the Lakers who are 27-31. I mean, what is it? 2 years ago, they won the championship. We're talking about the Portland Trailblazers at 25-34, who 5 years ago were Western Conference Finals, all perennial
I don't mean to laugh, but
contenders
it's
in the playoffs. It was, and then the
so
Pelicans,
mismanaged.
man.
Just all these teams so sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
This is some of the. This is a masterclass in how to not run an NBA organization, and it's in 3 acts. You have 3 different approaches to the way to do this thing. The wrong way, it's the LeBron James wields so much power in LA's building. He was able to do whatever he wanted. Backfired huge. Try to build around a guy who's not good enough to get you there. Don't do it correctly. Lose all your draft picks. Invest in scrubs. And now Dame Lillard's sitting out with a abdominal injury or whatever that's been hampered. This feels a lot like when, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander sits out for the Thunder because they have to lose. And then you have the Pelicans who try to do everything the right way and have just been, the culture there is so toxic that this seems very unlikely to turn around. So it's just like the reason I laughed is because you gotta take your pick. Like they all did it different and they all did it wrong.
It's truly like you laid it out perfectly. I mean, the Lakers, okay, we got a taste of success again. They've been desperate for it, right? They get that in the bubble. Okay, now who got us there? LeBron. Now let's fall to every whim and wish he wants, brings over everybody. Okay, I want this guy. Let's give this guy money. Now you got to get rid of that guy. I don't want him. Bring in Russell Westbrook. Oh, that's failed. Okay, now I'm mad at the franchise because he brought him in. It's like, it's just a mess there. Like it's a power struggle in there between Clutch Sports and the buses. That's what I'm hearing from Brian Windhorst, who's a LeBron whisperer.
I don't think it's a struggle at all. The only way, I think LeBron and Clutch have all the power. And the only struggle is if Rob Pelinka wants to be the guy to trade LeBron James.
Well, that'd be something. I mean, in Portland, I've said something about Portland before, but that is the stupidest front office. I mean, you trade this for a guy, Gary Trent Jr., you get Gary Trent Jr., and then you get rid of him for Norman Powell, who then you flip for nothing. Like, okay, so let's go build around Damian Lillard. Let's get Nurkic, who, yeah, he's a good double-double guy on the interior. Like, that's not what you needed around Lillard. You need pick and pop type of guys. Like, you need like a Sabonis. Like, go be aggressive and get him. Like, just so badly mismanaged. And like you mentioned it, like the scrubs that they got. I get you want role players and people who play that role, but you got to get good ones. Because the talent evaluation of that team is so bad. Their drafting was awful. That was a way. And then if you haven't heard the JJ Redick comments on Zion Williamson, and I love Zion. He's a Duke guy. I love how good he is, his talent. But we mentioned it, Tyson, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago on this show. When you haven't done shit in this league, you should not be demanding things. And your family shouldn't be demanding things. And the front office and the organization should not be catering to those demands. Zion Williamson, if he doesn't play this season, which it looks like he won't, will have only played 3 more games through 3 seasons than Greg Oden. That is not acceptable. And for at least Greg Oden shut it the hell up and tried to get back on the court and tried to play. Zion's unhappy. He's not contacting anybody. He doesn't seem to be in communication with the team. His dad or whoever is posting things about how he's unhappy in New Orleans. Here's an idea, pal. How about you play? And I know you got the shoe deal, and I know you got your rookie deal. You haven't done anything. You haven't done anything in this league to be making demands. And your family damn sure hasn't done anything to be warranting demands either. So I get it. It's player empowerment. I get it. It's great when players take control of their future and, oh, yeah, man, I want to play in New York. Really? Because from my point of view, I'd much rather play with CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram with the mess they have in New York. So grass isn't always greener. And you're going to have to make a commitment if you want to play in this league and you want to be an NBA player, or if you want to be an afterthought, because there's a lot of people who want to take your spot. And quite honestly, Zion Williamson may be talented. There's a lot of talented kids. I mean, this draft's loaded with them. And there's franchises, they don't sit for a lot of people. Like, it's a win-now league.
And it's ridiculous, too. I'm hearing people, like, talking about JJ Redick saying, his comments were out of left field or this or that. He's also a Duke guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? He had a huge falling out with New Orleans, very openly against David Griffin. Doesn't think he's good at his job, and then went out in support of David Griffin. So JJ Redick defending a team that he hates is now like the mental gymnastics to get to, it doesn't mean anything. It's like, what are you talking? This is the most like condemning thing that could have come out about Zion. And then my biggest thing with the CJ McCollum not texting or Zion not getting in touch with CJ McCollum. Isn't he the NBA PA leader? Didn't he take that from Chris Paul?
Yep.
So he's the most accessible person to contact in the entire NBA. So, I didn't have his number or whatever. It doesn't fly at all. And then B, it's not. You don't have to call him. You don't have to. You just got to send it. You could have texted him an emoji.
Yeah.
And that would have been the end of this whole thing. Yeah, or the eyes looking sideways or whatever. And just like the disdain you have to have for your career to not go through the most minimal of tasks to make you not appear like an asshole is, I think, very alarming. I think it'll probably only get worse as the situation goes on. Look, Zion should have been all NBA, like second team last year. What is he, 27-7 on 70% shooting this year? Brandon Ingram's having the best year of his career. They just go out, they get you CJ McCollum. You're not that far out of the play-in. We don't know, but it seems like there's been very minimal effort on Zion Williamson's side to get back in here and, make this thing right. And if you don't like it, dude, you can play your next 2 years for your $10 million or whatever, and you can go wherever you want. You can go wherever you want, or they'll trade you on the last year of your contract. If he went the Greg Oden route, there's no doubt in my mind that somebody would pay the Pelicans to get this guy off their team if he really wanted out. But now it's like, why do I have to trade for him? He's going to force his way. Like, they're getting Anthony Davis again after this is the guy they got. It's just nothing goes right over there.
No, it's a crazy situation. I mean, it seemed like you mentioned, the Pelicans did everything right. Okay, we have a guy who's unhappy in Anthony Davis. Let's trade him for the chance to get the number one pick. Oh, we have Zion Williamson, who's the home run draft pick at the time. Now, obviously, people are like, well, you should have taken Morant. Okay, hindsight's 2020. Every single franchise would have taken Zion.
Yeah.
Now, of course, because it's the New Orleans Pelicans, the player they got who was a can't miss, now he doesn't want to play there. Now it's all dysfunctional. It's truly unbelievable. Man, it's a mess there. That's for sure.
That's gross.
Let's put it before we put a bow on this thing and have caught everybody up and getting everybody ready. So I think there's a chance that some teams, there's some movement here for the play-in situation in the Western Conference. Okay. Minnesota 31-28. It looks like they've finished or figured things out. Clippers really improved, like you said. There's a chance Paul George plays. I don't think Kawhi's going to play. Who knows? But the players that they got at the deadline, formidable. Lakers, I mean, it's now or never for them. I mean, 27-31, you got to go. And Portland, I think they'll fall back. I don't think they're good enough, especially if Lillard doesn't play. But, they putting together a good close. Won 4 in a row right before the All-Star break. San Antonio, 2 games back. New Orleans, 2 games back. Kings, their goal is to push into this play-in spot to get the 10 seed. How aggressive do they get? How good do they play? Is there anybody that you can picture jumping into that play-in spot in the West?
I think Sacramento would be the one I would go with. I'm not ultimately confident they get there because it's Sacramento. And just, as much as we've just said about New Orleans, Sacramento is not allowed to have good things happen to them in a basketball space. I'm really, really intrigued by the De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis pairing. I want to see how the Kings envisioned it playing out because I have my own idea in my head, and I'm almost certain that it's going to be different from that. First of all, we need to get them a cool nickname as a pairing.
Oh.
Like the Fox and the blank. I mean, it goes together. So we go with that. But I think Sabonis is good enough to elevate this team. Everybody is like why did you get rid of Tyrese Halliburton? And you could have, he was going to be we talking about the same guy? He's a good player. That's an all-star. That's a multiple time all-star that we were just able to get because of everybody's favorite word in the NBA, the potential.
Right.
Right. The potential for Tyrese Halliburton to become, the next Chris Paul is a lot lower than it is that he becomes the next Sean Livingston, like the Golden State version one. So I love the trade by the Kings. I'm intrigued to see where they finish. I think just kind of trying to pick the toxic pieces of the locker room and move them out as you can. Not that Tyrese was that, but Buddy Hield could have been. So I like the Kings to be the one to jump up because, like you said, I think Portland falls down. I think New Orleans is a mess. I think the Lakers and Clippers are pretty locked in here in those spots, and I think that the Timberwolves are as well. So it's just really that last spot up for grabs.
I think the Pelicans figure it out. I'm going to make that prediction here. I think with CJ McCollum there, the veteran, Brandon Ingram, as you mentioned, playing the best he's ever played. Valanciunas has been a really good piece for them as well. Really good on that block, good rebounder. I think they do enough. I think they have more talent on the team now than Portland. I think they have more talent than the Spurs. I think they're going to find a way to weasel their way into the 10th seed. Get in and use that as like, really, Zion? You want to be at the Knicks? They couldn't make it in the East. I think the East is better than the West now, on the bottom now. But like, use that as a way to be like, hey, come back healthy, get acquainted with these guys. Look what they did without you. Imagine if you come back, and that's going to be them getting on one knee with the ring and say, baby, I know I messed up. It was all me. Even though Zion's been the asshole, as you said, through the situation. I think they figure it out, get it going. I think they'll find a way to make things interesting in that play-in tournament.
That would be really fun. And I mean, I don't know if it's like contractually obligated by the NBA, but it's just weird that LeBron's going to finish in the play-in both years. At least we think. There's a small chance they could step up, really unlikely, and there's a small chance they could fall out, which for the reasons we just outlined about other teams seems unlikely too.
All right, Tyson. Well, I think we did a good job catching people up. I mean, obviously, if you have questions, contact us on social media. Follow the Instagram @_the roundtable pod _ me on Twitter @bwakai, Tyson on Instagram @Tyson Gentry. You ask us questions, we'll get you on. We'll answer it on this podcast. Don't be shy. We don't bite. So anything at all, especially with this going on, basketball subjective. If you think we're wrong in a lot of things, let us know. You're going to be wrong because we're right, but that's okay. That's okay. But as always, guys, we appreciate you listening. Like, subscribe, and share. We really appreciate the support when you do that. We love hearing feedback as well. If you have a segment idea or whatever, again, contact us and we'll get you on air with stuff and rate us as well. As I know Tyson's been big on that. And if you leave a comment, we'll shout you out as well.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And this is a nice little check-in because it's been NFL heavy for the last, couple months, but this is now officially basketball is by itself as the only thing we're watching. And we'll have March Madness previews and stuff like that. And last year we had a pretty great track record there. So if you enjoy the gambling aspect of things, we're not done doing that either.
Yeah, we'll figure out a way to incorporate basketball. It's a little difficult with these podcasts, especially with some players missing time and sitting out, but we'll find a way to make you some more money. Don't you worry. So as always, we appreciate the support, appreciate you listening. And until next time, guys, peace.